Elite Minds has helped some of the premier teams in professional sports as well as those who are just coming into their own as athletes. Welcome back. When it comes to making or missing that 5-footer for a buck, skin, or say the U.S. Open, which is more important, having the right mental approach or making the purest physical stroke that you can? The answer, I think, probably is some of both. Now, there are all kinds of drills to groove your swing, but how do you get the mind in shape and tournament tough? Let's ask an expert. Sports psychologist Robert Price is the owner of Elite Minds Clinic in North Potomac, and he is our guest this time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
It's great to have you here. This is an area that has become a huge growth industry, if you will, particularly in professional golf. It seems like just about everybody, and just about at every level, has a swing coach. They also have a sports psychologist or a therapist who works very much on concentration, positive thinking, visualization, all those kinds of things. And we thought it was important to try and get some help here, too, on CGW and get folks thinking about this. What's the value of the mental approach? Is it in your mind as important as the physical approach?
It really is, Dave. When you really take a look at especially golf and understanding that the mental approach really is a majority of your round. I mean, you spend 4 or 5 hours playing golf. However, you don't spend that much time actually hitting and actually swinging at the golf ball. So the time that you have in between shots and the time that you have leading up to your round is extremely important, and to make sure that you have the right mental approach is extremely important as well.
And maximizing that time, taking most advantage of it, it seems to me, particularly if you are competing, to be such an important part of that. But you don't have to be on tour. If it's just a friendly, $3 Nassau or something like that, everybody loves to win, and it would be better if you could do it more often just by maybe taking a little bit of time in between shots when you're walking back to the cart and maybe thinking about the next shot.
Absolutely. One of the things when I first start working with an athlete, whether they're an elite athlete or just someone that's a weekend warrior, what I try to make sure that they understand is that they need a routine, and they need to have something that they do before each shot that makes sure that they really just center themselves and kind of get them to really think and then be able to perform what it is that they've practiced.
Obviously, we're not going to do a great deal of clinical work right now, because that's frankly something that's important to do, with your coach and with the individual player. But let's talk about a couple of some high-profile cases, if you will. And we're going to start with Kenny Perry. Leading into the Masters, Kenny Perry was arguably the hottest player on the men's tour. He was playing at a very high level for a gentleman who, let's be honest, has been on the game and at the high level of the game for a long time. But there was then that horrible final round of the Masters that he came unglued a little bit, and very honestly, he hasn't been the same since.
Correct. One of the things, especially with Kenny Perry, and in the interviews he had talked about the missteps that he made in prior tournaments. And he mentioned during that final round that he was actually thinking about those poor performances.
Is that the power of negative thinking then instead of positive thinking?
Absolutely, because it's so hard for us to shake that negative image. We never really see or hear the word don't in our mind. We just see water or tree. Would
he have been better off if he'd thought about the positives that he'd done, the fact that he'd won a couple of times leading up to the Masters, and try and recreate, gee, that really made me feel good, I was hitting my irons particularly well. Those kinds of things make a difference when you translate it into the physical activity.
Absolutely, and one of the things that I say to athletes, especially in the heat of that moment, is really just to think about yesterday. He played brilliantly yesterday, and he just needed to then refocus on what he had done well that week, and I think that would have been able to get him over the top.
Well, we hope that Kenny Perry comes back. He's a good fella. He deserves continued success, but we know how difficult that is. The next thing to ask about is Phil Mickelson, who is playing this week in advance of the U.S. Open, and coming back from 3 weeks off, from the diagnosis of his wife and breast cancer and the devastation that he says the family felt as a result of that. An interesting quote, I thought, from Phil Mickelson about the fact that he was itching to get back and play some golf, because it's on the golf course, in that bubble, that he feels the most normal. And it is sort of a bubble, I guess. You're insulated from the rest of the things that are going on.
Absolutely. It's like oftentimes when tragedy strikes, we want to try to get back into, again, that routine. And that routine of life for Phil Mickelson will be actually being out there playing under intense pressure, But that will allow him, again, to just take that time away from family and put it back in the golf course.
Is there a danger, though, in all the well-wishers in the stands and behind the ropes saying, we're with you, Phil, you know, we hope you and Amy come through? All that kind of does is sort of takes him away from the game and reminds him that there are other things out there beyond golf.
It does, but it also allows for him just an opportunity, again, to step back and to realize how important golf is to him, but also realize how important family is as well.
I think you get a better picture now, frankly, on the importance of the physical and the mental approach to the whole game. And Elite Minds and Robert Price, very important, and have been very valuable to a number of pro and amateur teams and athletes. We'd love to have you come back if you will.
Absolutely.
This is an important thing that we need to pay more attention to. If you want more information, we want to send you to the website, which is eliteminds.net.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much,
It's good
Dave.
to have you here.